Loeys-Dietz syndrome and your Social Security disability claim. The Social Security Administration doesn't make it easy for those who have Loeys-Dietz syndrome to get the Social Security disability benefits they deserve. Now, the Social Security Administration uses a 5-step sequential evaluation, and part of the issue in applying that is they just don't understand the syndrome and the restrictions and limitations that are commonly seen. Now, let's first talk about what is the syndrome. Loeys-Dietz syndrome is a genetic disorder, and it will impact the connective tissue in your body. Connective tissue provides not only strength, but flexibility to the bones, ligaments, muscles, and even the blood vessels. It affects multiple body systems, and that can result in a Social Security disability claim if you're no longer able to work. There are common problems associated with this syndrome, and the most common one is an enlargement of the aorta. Now, that can result in an aneurysm or a dissection of blood vessels. That's sort of a separating of the layers, if you will. It can also cause skeletal problems, and that can include a premature fusion of the skull. But the bigger problem, of course, is scoliosis of the spine and joint deformities. There is an issue with spontaneous collapse of the lungs, and there's even issues with hernias. But I think that the two most disabling problems, as I said, are of a cardiac nature and skeletal in nature. Now, from a cardiological standpoint, the common characteristics of the Loeys-Dietz syndrome is this enlargement of the aorta. That can cause some significant problems because the aorta is a large blood vessel that distributes the blood from your heart to the rest of your body. In Loeys-Dietz syndrome, you can have a weakening or you can have a stretching of the aorta that causes an aneurysm. Now, the aneurysm is a bulge in the blood vessel wall. Now, the stretching can also lead to this sudden tearing of the layers of the aorta, sort of like, if you will, a tire where the tread is coming off. That's known as an aortic dissection. Unfortunately, those who have the syndrome can have aneurysms or dissection in arteries throughout the body. It's just not located in the heart. Another characteristic of Loeys-Dietz syndrome is the scoliosis, which is an abnormal side-to-side curvature of the spine. But I think the bigger problem, quite frankly, is the joint deformities. Those are known as contractures, and that restricts the movement of a joint, and there's also joint inflammation. Now, that can occur in your spine, in your knees, in your hips, the joints of your hands and your wrists. When the Social Security Administration goes to apply the 5-step sequential evaluation that's used in every case, they're going to be looking at step 3 of the process. And it involves them looking at your medical records to determine whether or not you meet or equal a medical listing. Now, there is no straight listing for Loeys-Dietz syndrome, but there are listings for cardiological issues. There are issues for musculoskeletal conditions. So what we're all often doing is looking at step 3 and the blue book to see whether or not you meet a listing. More often than not, you don't. So we go on to steps 4 and 5. At step 4, the issue is, can you go back to the lightest job you held in the 15 years before you became disabled? At step 5, the question is whether or not there's other work in the hypothetical, mythical, not real world national economy that you wouldn't want to do, doesn't pay a living wage, in view of your age, your education, the skills, and the restrictions and limitations that you have. Now, in my view, the key to getting your benefits is step 4 and 5. And you need to have your physician complete a form called a residual functional capacity form. That form, Social Security will never tell you about, is going to document your functional restrictions and limitations. Now, there is no RFC for Loeys-Dietz syndrome. There are RFC forms for cardiological and musculoskeletal problems, and I try to use those in these types of cases. Now, additionally, your medical records should document the progression of your symptoms, because many times you will have worked with these symptoms, and the Social Security is going to be scratching their head saying, well, what's changed? So your medical records should document the frequency, duration, location of your symptoms, how these symptoms may have progressed, and how it's making it difficult for you to work. If your treatment has become less effective or you're having side effects, your medical records should also document that. Because again, you have to show that you can't do your past work or other work in the mythical, not real world national economy. In my view, these cases take teamwork. Not only teamwork with your physician and you, but you and myself, because we need to be able to make sure that your records document the progression of your symptoms, side effects of medication, why it is you can't do your past work or other work. Teamwork, that's what it's about. 727-894-3188 for a complimentary consultation.